Hey, welcome back. In this video, I wanted to talk about something that I see on basically every single Facebook group I'm a part of, whether it be woodworking, lasers, metal casting, welding, you name it. Every maker slash crafter group that I'm a part of on Facebook, this question comes up every day by somebody. And the question is, how much do I charge for whatever it is that I make? Every time this question comes up, the comment sections are full of people giving advice. And I have seen everything from super easy ways to calculate, what something would be worth. Like say somebody says, oh, well, I charge materials times 3. And I've seen people go very, very in depth and get very complicated about how they price their products. And to me, there's really only one way that makes any sense when it comes to pricing the things that you make. And I'm going to talk about that, and I'm going to tell you what that is at the end of this video. So if you don't want to hear me pontificate about some other issues when it comes to pricing first, and you just want to know what my opinion is on how to price your products, jump to the end, and that's where you'll find it. But before I tell you what my personal methodology is when it comes to pricing my products, I want to talk about a few issues. The first issue is, why are you doing this? Are you doing this because it's a hobby? You just enjoy doing it? You're really only looking to recoup your materials cost so that you can continue to build more things as a hobby? Are you trying to start a small side business in the hopes that one of these days you'll be able to do this full time? Or are you doing this full time already and just having trouble making money? Now, there are people in this world who wake up in the morning and they say, you know what, I am worth $100, $200 an hour, and nobody's going to tell me any different. But for the most part, the rest of us tend to underprice our labor, and we tend to underprice our own value. And that's important, because remember that we're all in this space together. The hobbyists, the people who are running side gigs, and the people who are doing this as a full-time business. We're all in this together. We're all in this industry or these industries together, and we need to take that into account. A lot of times what you'll see is a hobbyist who's making, say, I don't know, cutting boards, Adirondack chairs, metal signs, or things of that nature. They're just doing it for the fun. They're doing it for the learning experience. But then they take that product and they go on Etsy or Marketplace or wherever, and they sell it for next to nothing. Now, I'm not suggesting that we be price fixers here. Okay, I'm not saying that we all come together and like OPEC, try to decide what we're going to sell as a group, what we're going to sell an Adirondack chair for. But I do think that we have a responsibility to each other in this field to sell our items for an amount that's profitable, for an amount that values our time. I have a degree in finance. I've been in business for myself for at least 25 years, 26 years. And I know this process. I know how to run a business. I know how to make things profitable. And I know how to make money. And one of the pricing tactics that exist out there in the world is called basically the Grimm trigger. And people define that differently. But basically what that is it's when somebody is manufacturing something or providing something at such a low cost that nobody else in the market can make any money trying to compete with them on a price basis. And you'll see companies do this all the time. Now, pulling the Grimm trigger is something that sometimes people do on purpose. You'll see large companies do it who can afford to on a certain product line. It'll be a loss leader just so that they can capture market share. And you'll also see people kind of do this on accident. They won't take everything into consideration when they're building their product, and ultimately they'll find out that they're losing money on the deal over the long run. Just as an example, I watched, I'm not going to mention their name because I think it would be rude of me, but I was watching a business on Etsy who started up several years ago, and they had gotten themselves quite a good business going on Etsy. They had a lot of sales, thousands and thousands of sales. But the products they were selling were were priced so low that, and again, I'm a finance major. I do accounting. I did accounting. I know how these things work. I know what things cost. When you do all the math, it turns out that these guys were making somewhere along the lines of 10, maybe less, $8 an hour for themselves when it was all said and done. And unfortunately, that shop suffered a mishap, some bad news. They got some bad news. And because they hadn't been charging enough, and because they weren't able to really establish some sort of savings or some sort of rainy day fund, that little bit of bad news ended them overnight. It was gone. So that entire business that they spent several years putting together went away. Went away because truly it came down to price. They weren't charging enough for what they were producing. They were producing a ton of them. They were selling a ton of them. But on each and every single one, they were only making enough to probably give them $8, $9, $10 an hour max on producing these particular goods. So that is something that I think that we all need to help support one another in whatever fields you're in, be it woodworking or metalworking. We need to help people value themselves. We need to value ourselves, and we need to value our time. When it comes to making a product, there's really only two things that go into it. There's your cost of materials, and there's the cost of your time. Now, sure, you're going to have taxes, you're going to have Etsy fees or seller fees, your website fee to maintain. You've got some fixed costs there, but really, it comes down to what materials go into what you're making and what time goes into what you're making. So I was having this conversation with somebody the other day on Facebook. And they said, well, I charge materials times 3. So if I spent $100 on materials, I'm going to charge $300 for the whole project. That sounds good until somebody asks you to build a library out of particle board, okay, which is $20 a sheet. At that point, it becomes pretty evident that pricing model is not going to work out, and you're not going to be real profitable on that job. So, with that said, what is the best way to price your products? And really, to me, the only way that makes sense is to base it on your time. And first, you have to decide what you're worth. And everybody is worth something different. Two completely different people can be making Adirondack chairs. And you might look at either one and not be able to tell the difference between who made this one and who made that one. And upon close investigation, you may not even see any real differences in quality between one or the other. But what you will see is a difference in the price. And that's because one person values their time more than someone else. We all need to value our time. And the easiest way to come up with basically a pricing model would be just to ask yourself, how much do I need to make? How much do I want to make? If I was doing this full time, if that's my goal, if my goal is to get out of this hobby version of what I'm doing, or this side gig version of what I'm doing, if I'm looking to do this full time and get out of my job, then your time is worth whatever you've sacrificed to do that, okay? Because there is an opportunity cost involved with quitting your job, right? So if you work at McDonald's and you make $12 an hour working at the cash register, then if you want to do your hobby full time, you need to be charging $12 an hour for your work, okay? If you're an accountant and you can charge $50, $75 an hour, well, then you need to charge $50 or $75 an hour for your work, okay? Because there is an opportunity cost. You could be out doing somebody's books for $50 an hour, or I could be building you kitchen cabinets. So you've got to look at it that way. Now, mathematically, there's a very easy way to determine how much you can make. I see people all the time that they've got a job offer, or they're looking at a job listing and they're going, oh, well, this job pays $15 an hour, this job pays $40 an hour, $30 an hour, and they whip out their calculators and like, okay, well, it's this much an hour for this many hours a week and this many weeks a year. You don't have to do that. Let me tell you a really easy trick to find out just how much an hourly rate turns out to be over the course of a year. You take your hourly rate, say $15 an hour. You multiply it by 2, that's 30. Then you just add 3 zeros to it. If you're working full time at $15 an hour, that's 30 grand a year. Okay, and it works for, it's a couple extra dollars. It might be another $100, $200, $30,000, $200, whatever it is. But really, the easy way to do this is just to multiply the hourly times 2, add 3 zeros. So $35 an hour comes out to $70,000 a year. $40 an hour comes out to $80,000 a year, so on and so forth. So very, very quick way to get almost to the exact number of what you're going to make a year. So how do you incorporate that into pricing your products? Well, you carve out your materials cost. Your materials cost what your materials cost. I have seen people that feel like when they invoice out, they're gonna say, okay, well, I've got a 4x8 sheet of ply. I spent $70 for that ply. I'm gonna tack on 30% to that. I don't understand why you would do that and why you would put that on an invoice. Anybody can look at an invoice and go online and see that you are charging the extra for the materials. And it's not a real honest way of doing business. The materials cost what the materials cost. You cost what you cost. Don't try and hide your value in materials, because it's not okay. It's not okay for your soul. It's not okay for this industry. It's not okay for the rest of us. Guys, value your time. Your time is worth something. If you could be making $25 an hour out there at a job, then you should be making $25 an hour making your product. Okay? So one of the things that people always come back with and say, well, yeah, but I could go out and I could make $40 an hour at a job. I have a college degree. I've been working in a field for 20 years. I could easily make $40 an hour. I'm never going to make $40 an hour building cutting boards or something like that. And I'm going to tell you that, yes, you can. You just need to figure out a more efficient way of doing it. If you can batch things out, then you can very easily make $40 an hour making cutting boards. You can make $100. You can make $200 an hour making cutting boards. Okay? If you just do everything in a logical order. So don't try to get too focused on price competition. As sellers, it's really tempting for us to go on Etsy or to go on the internet, Google, the products that we make, and see what other people are charging, and then kind of use that as a base for where we're going to go with our prices. I'll tell you what, we do that. We go out and we shop around competition. But I think what you find is a lot of times consumers aren't doing that, okay? You posted something on Facebook, you ran an ad on Facebook, they saw your ad, they decided, I love that product. They went and they visited your store and they bought it. They didn't go out and price shop other Etsy sellers. Not much anyways. They're not doing the same kind of research we're doing when we're looking into building a business online. And I've got to tell you that I've run products for all kinds of different prices, just as a test. I've priced some things very high, I've priced some things very low, and I've tracked the data over time to see, if price is really that big of an influence on how many items people buy from you. And what I found out is it's not. And if you look at a lot of the research, a lot of the marketing research, a lot of what you learn in college, in business administration, finance, marketing, is that truthfully, people don't shop around a whole lot, especially when it comes to very personal or unique items that are handmade, like you would sell on Etsy or like you would sell at a farmer's market. So don't worry too much about that. Really, it comes down to your time. And that is the easiest way to do it. So it is my opinion that to ensure proper pricing or to get the right pricing on your product, you take the materials, everything you paid, okay? If you paid tax on it, you don't have a tax permit, you add up your materials cost, your tax cost, that's your materials, that's your supplies that went into it. And then you figure out how long it took you. Okay, if it took you 3 hours and you want to make 20 bucks an hour, then you add 60 bucks to your materials cost. If you want to make $50 an hour, then you add 150 bucks to your materials cost. And that's how much you're going to charge. And I think that you'll find, and if you tinker around with it on your own Etsy pages or your website, I think you'll find the same thing is true. You can change your prices quite a bit. It really does boil down to, does somebody like your product or not? If they like your product and the price is at least reasonable, they're going to pay it. Now, I'm not suggesting you go out and you charge a ton of money for your product, that you go out and say, oh, I'm worth $100 an hour, when you're not. I'm not suggesting that. But but that's the way. I think that's the only way that makes any sense when it comes to pricing your products, is take the materials and then take the time that it took you and how much you want to make if you were doing this full time, and put them together. Because if you don't do it that way, what's going to end up happening is you're going to get orders, you're going to be working your butt off, and then at the end of the day, you're not going to have a whole lot of money to show for it. And the whole experience is going to be a negative one. So that's my tip to you. Materials, charge the materials what the materials cost. Anybody can look that up. You don't want to give anybody a reason to say, oh, that guy ripped me off. Your hourly rate is worth something. All right. And if people don't want to pay it, then that's probably not the kind of customer you want. All right. So that's my 2 cents. I'd love to hear your hate comments down below, and we can have a discussion about it. But good luck with your business, and we'll see you next time.